All right, we're ready to go. Workplace 20. This is section 2.2, part 2 of 2. There we go. So we're starting with example 3 on page, what was it, 72?
90.
90, of course. Roger is a real estate agent in Red Deer, Alberta. How many of you have been to Red Deer, Alberta?
I have.
Just one?
Yep.
You guys haven't? Red Deer. It's a great little place, actually. Yeah, I like Red Deer. The graph below compares the average house prices of new single-family homes and resale, not new, single-family homes. Okay, so new homes and resale homes. Okay, which one would you expect to be worth more money? New homes or homes that have been lived in and are being resold?
New homes.
Yeah, probably new homes generally, I guess, right? Does that always happen?
No.
No. So in here in 2009, it looks like the average price of new homes was quite high compared to the resale. But check this one out. 2007 and 2006. Interesting. Okay. Just a quick question. What do you think would be the reason why this would be such a difference here, and possibly this in these 2 years, that the used homes and not the new homes would be worth more? Any idea why? What do you think?
Well, maybe there wasn't as much building, like houses getting built, or houses are getting expensive.
Okay, so the number of houses on the market. Okay, so if the number of new houses on the market, if that was really, if there was a lot of new houses on the market, do you think the price for each one would be high or low? If there's a lot of things to choose from, a lot, then probably each one would be a little bit lower. If you consider the fact that, let's say there was only 2 new homes in the whole city, would you have a lot of people clamoring to buy those new homes? And probably would the person selling them want to jack up the price? Because, hey, there's only 2. So you're going to pay what you're going to pay, right?
Like after a certain amount of time, though, if they don't get bought, would they lower it?
Yeah, that's right. If it doesn't sell after time, they would lower it for sure. So there could be. So look at this. The house prices for new houses were high here, and then they were lower than the other ones. So maybe there was too many new houses on the market, and maybe they weren't being sold, like you said. So maybe the older homes, maybe there was fewer of them in the house. I don't know. Could be that. Maybe the new homes, maybe there wasn't a lot of building happening between, here and here. And maybe there were fewer new homes on the market, and so that price drove up a little bit. Because there's still a certain amount of people that want new homes versus old homes, right? Okay, so lots of different reasons. So we can interpret the data a lot of different ways. So what are the questions associated with this? Now, the question, okay, just some simple question here. What was the average price of a new family home in 2005? Okay, so if we're going to 2005, there are 2 bars at 2005, right? One is going to be the resale home average, and one's going to be the new home average. So what you see in 1 year, we have 2 different bars. No problem. You just have to look at the right one. So the new single-family homes in 05. We look at this graph right here, this bar right here, and we see the average price was $240,000. So $240,000. Right? Everybody see that? Where you get that from the graph? Here's 2005. Here's the new home bar right here, and we look at the height of that and the number associated. Between what years was there a drop in the price of the resale single-family homes? So were there any years where there was a drop in the resale homes? That's the black bars. Any years that experienced a drop? Looks like it goes up here, up here, up here, up here, and then what? Look at this right here. Between 2007 and 2009, there was a drop in the price. Okay, and again, maybe there were more older homes on the market, and so the price kind of went down because they weren't selling, and so you want more people to look at older homes, so you drop the price and make it more attractive. Okay. What was the general trend in the difference in prices? So which costs more or less of the 2 types of units? In which year was this not so? So what's the general trend in the difference? The general trend is what? What's the difference generally if you look at the sets, the pairs of bars? Okay, generally they're going up, but what about the difference between the price? Which one costs more, which one costs less? Generally, according to this right here.
The newer homes.
Okay, generally, you guys seeing that? Generally, the new home bar here is longer or taller than the old home bar. Generally, that's the case. There were a couple years where that wasn't the case, and that was 2006 and 7. You see that? So 2006 and 7, that's the difference. Okay, so generally right here, new homes are sold for more in 2006 and 7, though that was not the case. All right. Any questions there? Okay, next page. Build your skills. Okay, so you get to practice the skills here that we've learned. So the following table shows average weekly household expenses for, let's make this a little bit bigger, for all Canadian households with children compared to the expenses of households in the lowest income range in the country. Okay, so lowest income households, okay, so this is the amount of spending, the household expenses per week in lowest income and all houses with children. So we're comparing a couple sets of things. First of all, weekly expenses. The money is going to go on the side here, right? And down here, we're going to have the different categories, and we're going to have 2 bars for each. So for the food and drink, we're going to have a bar for low-income households, and then we're going to have a bar for households with kids. Okay? So for each of these categories, we're going to have 2 bars. Okay. So draw a double bar graph to represent the data. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a kind of a fancy graph here. Let's change the pen there. Let's make that dark. Okay. All right, so what do we say we need? We're going to have the cost, I guess, is going to be the vertical axis, right? The cost. So let's say cost, and the unit would be in dollars, and it's weekly, right? So you could put weekly expenses as a title. Okay. And over here on the side, we're going to have to put low income, and let's make that like, maybe let's make that black. Okay? So that's going to be black. And households with children, let's say the children ones, let's make those red. Okay? So we have to kind of put a little legend there, show kind of what this graph is going to look like. All right. So these two, okay, so low income, this is going to be black here, right? Oops, that's not black. Tap. Black here, and then red here. You see that? Okay, so what do we use for a scale here? Because that's a big deal. Do I go $0 to $10? Can't do that. What is my largest number amount I see here?
160.
Well, there's a 160, but there's a 176 I spy. So 176. So let's go to 180, shall we? 180. So this is going to be 90. That's half of that. Half of that's going to be about 45, and so on. Okay? And so that's the way I'm kind of setting this up here a little bit. Okay. So let's go with that. Okay. Now, food and drink. Okay. So now what we do on the bottom is we go food, drink. And we're going to have 2 bars for food and drink. So food and drink is going to be 104 on the black. See, lowest income. Food and drink is going to be 104. So my black one, lowest income, black. We're going to go up to 104, which is going to be right about there. Now you don't have to do colors. If you don't have colors, you can do shaded. You can do horizontal lines, vertical lines, or something. Okay? But you're going to have to distinguish your 2 bars here somehow. So there's food and drink for lowest income. What about food and drink for all households with children? Well, it's going to be 140. So let's make this bar, and you can kind of snuggle it right up to the other one. Let's go up to 140. 140 is going to be right there. It's going to be red. Okay? So this is going to help us see visually the comparison for each category between the 2 situations. All right? So I'm going to give you a few minutes, and why don't you go ahead and complete this bar graph on your own. With that, that's the start of it, and yeah, we'll check you out in a few minutes, okay? Okay, so I think you've all almost got your bar graphs done. So I'll tell you what, why don't we just take a quick look at this? And here's my bar graphs. Okay, not totally neat, definitely neater than yours. But anyways, so we can quickly see the comparison, can't we? We can see the trends. I mean, as far as which ones are generally more, which ones are less, and we can also see really quickly the big differences and maybe the small differences, right? Heat and electricity. Low-income people and people with kids don't spend a whole lot of different amount of money in heat and electricity. Okay, technically it's $6. On the bar graph, we see that it's almost the same, right? What's the biggest difference in spending that you see? What do you think is the biggest difference? Recreation. Okay, recreation is a big thing. Now, kids are in different activities, right? So maybe they spend a lot of money on different activities. Also, transportation, right? That's a huge difference. Those two right there. And of course, if kids are involved in things, they're paying more for the recreation. They're running around more to the recreation. So those both make sense, don't they? So that's actually, that fits pretty good together. I mean, that's reasonable. Okay, what are some of the questions pertaining to this? Explain the trends in spending of the lowest income families compared to all families. Okay. So what would the trends be in comparison? What would you say when you compare the two groups, low income and all households with children? What would you say, what's one thing you would say comparing those two generally?
Low income trying to save a little bit.
Okay, so the low income families, it appears that they spend less on everything, right? Is there anything they spend more on as far as these categories? It looks like as far as the bar graphs go, that the black ones here are always shorter than the red ones.
For the ones with the health, no, not health, heat and electricity.
Yeah, this one? Yeah, they're pretty close, right? But they're still under, right? So you're right. These ones are close, absolutely. But you could say, right, according to this data, that the low-income families spend less in every category than all families in general with kids, and that's true from our data. But you're right. There's some that are really close. Even the health, right? And education as well. Where's hang on, health. Where's education? Oh yeah, education's down here. Okay, but health care costs per week. Okay, pretty low in both. Awesome. Any questions about that? Okay, so it's important to get information from these graphs. Okay, so I will get you to work. I'll give you a few minutes to work on number 8. Okay, so you guys did number 8. Okay, so here's number 9. Let me set up number 9 for you. The following graph shows the high and low daily temperatures for 1 week in Pincher Creek, Alberta. Okay, the high and low. Now this is a different kind of graph, isn't it? Look at how some of the bars extend downward and some of the bars extend upward from this center line. Now why would they do that? Yes?
Because some of the temperatures are negative, so they go down, or some of the
Right.
temperatures are positive, so
Right,
they go
because,
up.
very good. We have some negative temperatures and some positive ones. So yeah, so it makes sense that these bars would start at 0 and go down maybe for negative ones. Now it doesn't have to be like this, but you will see this once in a while too. And this gives us a really, really good representation of what would be negative or below 0 and what would be above 0, right? That's very obvious when you look at this visually. Awesome. So this is kind of confusing though. Look at this. The high is a negative. Is that possible even?
Yes, it is.
It is. So we're in winter right now, and obviously we have highs that are negative numbers. What that means is on that day, the warmest that we will get is anticipated to be this temperature, which still could be a negative, no problem. The coldest would be the lowest one here, and so that's how they separate this. High would be the black, and the low would be the gray. And so on Thursday, there's a high of what? What is that? What is that right there?
4.
It is 4 because there are 4 lines between 0 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can count that up. So that's a high of +4 and a low of negative or minus.
3.
I think that's 2. Yeah, it's 2. So there'll be some questions there, and we've answered a lot of them. So why don't you go ahead and take a minute and answer those questions. Excuse me. So, what was your question?
I said, why, I looked ahead a bit. But anyways,
Yep.
I said, why would they have a stacked program? That just makes.
Why would there be a stacked bar? Okay, well, let's talk about that, because that's what we're talking about next, stacked bar graph. So you read it ahead. So what is a stacked bar graph? Well, when comparing data, sometimes you use a stacked bar graph. This style of graph, each type of item is represented by a different color, and instead of being drawn side by side, the bars are stacked on top of each other. So remember the side by side bars, like this? Okay? Those are bars that are side by side, right? Here, what we're talking about is bars that would be stacked on top of one another. Now, here's a picture of a stacked bar graph. Now, there's certain situations that this would work really well.
It makes no sense. So honestly, the bars just look like the printer ran out of ink, so that's why it's
Okay, so the bars just look like the printer ran out of ink.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. Here's the thing. When you look at the battery level in your phone, on your phone, okay? Now watch this. Just bear with me for a second.
Okay.
So let's say that your battery icon looks something like this. Okay, let's put those down. Let's say your battery icon looks like this.
Yeah.
Full charge would look something like this, where it's all filled in.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
I mean, like half charged.
It means half charged. Now let's take this and let's flip this around. There's the battery, and here is half charge. Okay, what is this one?
No charging.
Like,
Means you're
dead.
Extremely low. Now, here's my question. Why on earth would they do that? Why would they do that? Because I think that this is a way better deal. Okay? Here is full, and beside it, they should put another battery that shows where the actual charge is.
You know why they just do that? Honestly, because like if you just did a double stacked one, you're just like, oh, like some people maybe won't clue in that it's like the whole entire thing. So they'll look, oh, it's
Okay,
not one
okay.
thing.
So, do you understand what this means?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to see this instead when your battery's low? Or does this seem pretty efficient?
That was pretty efficient.
Okay. So this one's a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think? Okay. So there's certain situations that this would work really well in. If you want to save some space, or you want to make the bars a little bit bigger for the space that you have, it might be a good idea to maybe put them on top, to stack them. Now, it would work really well if one of the bars is always greater than the other one, as in the case with the battery. So the empty battery or the full battery, let's say the empty battery, would always be, the whole battery. And then this part would be how much battery you have left. So really, it would be more like this. This would be empty battery, and this would be full. We can stack these because one is always sort of less than the other. Okay? If they flipped over, it might be a little confusing. So if it was stacked like this on top of one another, and then all of a sudden one was bigger than the other, you might lose it, right? So that wouldn't be a situation where we'd use it. But just like in your battery example, okay, this is much more convenient than this. All right? Now, if you weren't sure that this was a stacked graph, all you'd have to do is look up here, right? We have to have this. We have to have this still. And this tells us that, hey, there are two things we are considering, just like back here. You see this? Two things we're considering. Now, because the lengths of those kind of they switch around, right? One is larger, one is smaller, and that switches around throughout the year here in this case. If it doesn't switch at all, then we might have a real good, this might be the most efficient way of doing this. Okay, so this is the same graph that we had, 2002 to 2009. Okay, so this is similar. Okay, the new ones for resale versus resale, the new ones are always here. But now, the new houses were always more expensive than the houses that were being resold after being lived in. So that's okay. This is a good candidate for this type of graph. Okay? All right, so the questions are this. Draw a stacked bar graph. What is less obvious on a stacked graph than a double bar graph? What might be less obvious? I don't know. What might be less obvious, okay? So, this to me looks pretty, everything looks pretty obvious, but is there anything that maybe looks less obvious?
No, can't be now.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think this is the best way to do this style of graph, okay? All right, what may be less obvious is sort of the trends with the lighter ones maybe. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not sure what's less obvious. Okay, so you have one more question to do here before we hit the actual practice questions. So what I want you to do is I want you to take the rest of this class to do number 10. And this is you're gonna practice doing a stacked bar graph here, okay? And then once you're done number 10, you can start the practice your new skills problems, okay? Oh, and I guess there's 11 as well. So do 10 and 11, and then you can start the practice skills. So if you have any questions about 10 and 11, let me know, and then you can start your practice skills.